Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Isn't it a fantastic Friday afternoon? I'm Shrikant Acharya. I'm the CEO at offineeds.com, and welcome to the 13th episode of Employee Engagement Live. Today is going to be super exciting. Yet another episode, lots of questions and answers related to employee engagement, productivity, leadership, and so on. And I have an exciting guest with me. I'm super looking forward to this episode. Give me a minute before I bring him on. Let's warm you guys up. So once again, I'm Shrikant Acharya, and welcome to Employee Engagement Live. OffiNeeds is a leading corporate gifting and merchandise company, and this is the 13th episode of Employee Engagement Live. What I do on Employee Engagement Live is I bring in seasoned professionals, mostly from the HR, corporate communication, and leadership positions of different companies who have got a ton of experience with brand building and with employee engagement. And then I ask them questions about employee engagement. Now, why do we talk about employee engagement? Because employee engagement has always been super critical and super important. However, it's become even more challenging than ever before because of the pandemic and because of the remote working and the current work from home situation we are in. There is still a lot of lack of clarity. What is work going to look like in the coming few months and maybe over the few years? Is remote working going to continue? Is it going to be partial? And what is employment going to look like? What are the kind of career opportunities? And from an employer point of view, what is it that you can do to engage with your employees much, much better? Let's try to get all of these questions, or at least some of these questions, answered by today's guest. So today we have with us a fine gentleman. His name is Sandeep Kochhar. If you're on LinkedIn and if you're interested in the space of leadership, marketing, technology, and HR and management and so on, you're probably already following Sandeep Kochhar. If not, go to LinkedIn and follow Sandeep Kochhar. He brings in amazing value in the form of his posts. I recently had the opportunity to meet him when I was in Delhi, and he's an amazing human being. And I've been following him on LinkedIn for a while now. And what I've been mighty impressed by is how much he went out of his way to help individuals to get jobs and to be able to help rebuild their careers for people who have lost jobs during the last 1.5 years of the pandemic kind of a situation. So to tell you a little bit about Sandeep is running a consulting firm, a leading consulting firm based out of Gurgaon. It's called BlewMinds. He's a storyteller and he's the founder. His specialization is storytelling in the areas of HR, marketing, and technology. He works with a lot of startups and corporates and helps them specifically in the area of executive search and diversity hiring. He specializes in influencer and content marketing and market research, and also leadership development across people, culture, and change. Prior to being an entrepreneur and running his own consulting firm, he's worked with large organizations like HCL, IBM, Honeywell, British Council, and HT Media. So without any further ado, let me welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen, Sandeep Kochhar.
Hi, Shrikant. How are you?
Hi, Sandeep. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thank you. Wonderful to
Awesome.
virtually see you again. Yeah.
Yes, same here. Welcome to Employee Engagement Live, Sandeep. This is the 13th episode, and every single episode, to all my guests, this is the first question I ask them. What, according to you, Sandeep, is employee engagement?
I think employee engagement is, I think, that thread that binds people together to an organization. So, when you join an organization, there are so many expectations you have, but a lot of those are met through, different kinds of needs. So they could be career needs, they could be emotional needs, they could be, you know, different physiological needs and others. But really, I think it's relationships at work that really keep you together to the organization. That is what employee engagement is.
Right. Perfect. I think that's very well said. Let's talk about these relationships and how these relationships matter in in a remote working kind of an environment. But before we go there, I want to once again welcome all the audience. I know it's a Friday evening. The weekend is just around the corner. You could have a ton of things to do. I really appreciate you taking the time off and being here and listening to this. I'm going to do my best to make it the highest value for your time. So my advice to you is you're going to get a lot of golden nuggets. So please keep your pen and paper ready and jot down any questions you have, because you will have the opportunity in a few more minutes to point those questions to Sandeep himself. And of course, like every episode, the three best questions will get a 500 rupee gift voucher from the home office .in. Having said that, Sandeep, let's talk about relationships, right? You brought out a very important point. Relationships are like a very important thread that bind the employee to the employer, right? Now, how has that changed? How have the dynamics of relationships changed in a pre-pandemic situation to the current remote working situation that we are in right now?
I think one is that it's become transactional now, because
Mm,
you're not physically seeing anybody. So yes, you're talking to people on the phone. Most of the time, we put our videos off, so that's only voices in the head. So you're not
yeah.
really dealing with human beings, just voices. So I mean, you could be working with somebody who had recorded some voices and playing out to you. I mean, those could also be the case. But really, I think the human connect obviously has gone to a different level altogether, because now you are not really in physical proximity of people, and because of
Mm,
that, it definitely becomes very difficult for people to relate to the person on the other side, right? And
yeah.
in many ways, even though we have videos now, but since people don't use videos so much, I think it's become very similar to the 1980s, when phone calls used to come, and we used to we used to talk to people on the phone. Now the only difference is that now we are not excited anymore. So
Right.
those days it used to be very nice, because you would really wait for a phone call to come, and you had one phone in the neighborhood and you would go out there to receive a call. But
Yeah.
obviously that has changed completely. Now you dread receiving a call, and you don't want to, unless you are somebody who's really needing some help badly or whatever. But really, I think that whole paradigm has changed completely. But if we look at it, like today, I think we are having a fun Friday in our organization, where people are playing virtually. They're playing a few games, and they're very excited. So the new age folks, the millennials specifically, I think they are looking forward to more and more engagement where they can have such. Now the other aspect is, obviously, you also have added to that entire thing. You have your family added to that mix of
Mm,
engagement with colleagues. Now that's, I think, spoils the party a little bit more, because just imagine, I was speaking to one of the clients today, and as I was speaking to her, her daughter came in, and so she's trying to deal with her daughter along with speaking to me as well. So I think it's much more
yeah.
difficult now for people, and maybe that may introduce certain more boundaries as well. So, and maybe in some ways they're forced to do it, right? So so
Yeah.
it may not be very comfortable for a lot of people now with this whole new thing happening and how people are working. So I started work from home in 2015.
Mm,
So I was very used to that time, and I used to find it very nice, because I don't have to deal with people, and I have to just do my own stuff. I could do anywhere, whatever I feel like. So, but and those days we used to use Skype, and
yeah.
obviously now it's not as much, but I think that has changed radically now. Now with so many channels available of communication. But are we using them well enough? That may be a question mark still. I think we are back to the telephone age in many ways.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's an important point that you brought out, that people are not switching on their videos and the communication is mostly becoming transactional. So I think this is a great time to ask you. Tell us a little bit about storytelling, and what role and what how important does storytelling become in these current times?
Yeah, I think when communication becomes boring, then you need to make it interesting, and therefore you require
Yeah.
stories. So yes, you would want to listen to an interesting incident or an anecdote or a story, rather than listening to something really boring happening, right?
Right.
So definitely, I think storytelling is taking the forefront in terms of whether it's media or social media or even now virtual communication. So we're all wanting to kind of interact with people in different ways. So that is where that new medium is storytelling in many ways, because you get to interact with someone else in a very interesting fashion. So
Right.
so yeah, I think that's the new thing now. Storytelling, has been there for ages, especially in India. We grew up
Mm.
reading. I grew up reading Amar Chitra Katha and Tinkle comics um, and Superman and whatever Spider-Man kind of comics. So those were all stories we were reading, and we used to enjoy them because they took us in a world of imagination, where
Yeah.
you would imagine things that you could become a Superman and you could, because in reality we knew
Correct.
we could not. So stories also help you run away from reality, which is very nice, because reality is horrible at times, and most of the time, you're stuck or you're not feeling good, and so you can just imagine something, go into somebody else's life, and experience something, and
Yeah.
come back to the real world. So you also have
Right.
the power to kind of come back when you're thinking of a story or listening of a story, because you can switch off anytime and come back. So that way it becomes a very powerful medium also for communicating difficult things or difficult
Mm.
messages.
Right.
It simplifies communication very well.
Right, right. So I completely hear what you're saying, right? I completely align with that. So to speak, in India, we've been all like traditionally we've heard about Ramayana and Mahabharata, and it's basically storytelling in one form or the other, and that's how everything that we've learned has been passed on, right? So, but in the context of employee engagement and in the context of corporate culture and so on, where does storytelling fit in? And you can probably tell us a little bit with some examples.
Yeah, so a very, very simple thing, like for example, when we were going to a physical office, how do employees come
Hmm.
to work?
Hmm.
I got to
Cab.
know of a company where they had this simple contest where they asked people to send the videos of how they would come to work.
Okay.
And one of the employees, he sent a video of a boat ride. So he was in Kolkata and he used to take a boat ride and come to office,
Okay. Awesome.
and that was so powerful as a because it makes you think at different levels, that look, somebody's taking hours to come to work, and
Yeah.
here we are always talking about what is the traffic is bad and all of that. So I think that's where stories engage people. The other thing is, when you're working with clients, for example, there are a lot of interesting stories where you learn from them, and also success stories that come out.
Hmm.
That's where you can create those into success stories, and you could share it back with clients. So if you're trying to, for example, look for business or even a job for that matter. Now
Hmm.
if you're looking for a job and you go into an interview, and let's say the interviewer is wanting to interview for a particular position, and if you've done your homework well, and let's say you give examples of
Yeah.
exactly what he or she is looking for, I think you've
Hmm.
cracked the interview. And that is where storytelling comes into play, because you give an example. Similarly, if you go to meet a client, and let's say instead of talking about what all you have done, you just
Hmm.
give one small example of what you recently did, and which is just very similar to what the client is expecting. That's where you kind of crack the deal. And that's how I've seen that you don't need to sell anything actually. You just need to share a story or an evidence. So people are looking for evidence, because
Hmm.
in this world there is a lot of fakeness, right? Like the profiles that you see on these social media platforms, people are very
Yeah.
fake. So so now everybody is looking and trying to find out, is this person real or not? And that's the only
Right.
question most people have.
Right.
And then they try to figure out and find out, oh, this person is not real, and most of the time we always start with doubt. A doubt
Hmm.
of trying to, because you have a hypothesis in the head, it can't be possible. And that's
Correct.
the hypothesis most people start with. So we
Hmm.
generally begin with a negative hypothesis, and then if you are proven otherwise, because you realize that you've been disappointed so many times in life, you start feeling, oh, this is another, this person is not what he or she is saying. So
Right.
now stories can obviously enhance your profile or make you larger than life, but eventually the rubber meets the road when you meet the story,
Hmm.
and
Correct.
that's when you find out that, is this story really real? How is it?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
people are also stories only.
Hmm.
people are, and in the last 1.5 years, what's happened is a lot of people have been struggling with several things.
Right.
The market has really been very tough for people who've been working and all. So I think inspiration stories inspire people. So if you hear of somebody finding some good thing happening in someone's life, then you start to get very motivated.
Yeah.
I remember in our locality, wherever I stay, some people, some of our friends, they came home and all they did was talk about the virus and what horrible things are happening. And that's when I started realizing that how negativity can actually play a role, and it can just take away all the positivity. So
Right.
stories are positive.
Mm.
You cannot find negative stories don't sell much, so you look at
Mm.
positive stories, so they'll inspire you, and that's the power of storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely agree with you. I think that's a great point. Uh, I completely resonate with the fact that if a candidate can come and instead of saying, "Look, I've done this. This is my job description. This is the thing," if they're able to narrate a story, then you sold yourself better than anybody else. And I think that's fantastic advice to anybody who's probably preparing for an interview or something like that, right? So Sandeep, I want to talk to you a little bit about. I know you consult or you kind of guide a lot of professionals in their personal career, and you have a chatbot which kind of does some kind of a coaching for people who are looking for a job and trying to grow your career. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this happened. See, what happened last year during this time was when the market began to slow down in, I would say, November of 2019,
Mm,
and that is when slowdown started to happen. Now we could see it happening, but as human beings, we are right. We don't understand it till it hits us.
mm,
I think the virus only came into it just maybe it just amplified whatever was happening.
mhm,
And then, obviously, March of last year, when job losses started to happen, that is when we thought that we should do something about it.
mm,
We started to kind of help people in trying to find them jobs and all. We also convinced a lot of our clients to, hire people who have lost their jobs. We
right.
also started coaching a lot of working professionals because it was also that time when people were getting stuck in their career as well, and that
Mm,
continued for over a year or so. So we started building a product actually during that time. The
mm,
product will go live. It's called Paint Minds. It will go
mm.
live hopefully in the next 1 month. But basically, we
Okay.
tried to kind of look at this entire piece and say how can we help people who are stuck. So right from a very simple thing like you send your profile and it doesn't get shortlisted,
Right.
and you
Mm.
never know why. So this tool we are building is basically going to remove that problem, and it will tell you why you're not getting shortlisted even before you apply
Okay.
to
Mm,
the job. And the second thing is, when you're stuck in your career, a lot of times, we don't get the guidance we need. Like, when
mm,
should I move my job? When
mm,
when is the right time to move? Should I be moving when I'm doing really well or very bad?
mm,
A lot of people move jobs when they're doing really bad. Now what
mm,
happens with that is that you're in frustrated position and you just pick up whatever you get, and then eventually you
mm,
land from the devil to the deep sea and
mm,
it becomes even worse. So I think that entire piece around it, and as we started to kind of look at all of this, we realized that there are also a lot of other things that play. People's performance at work is dependent on their personal lives. However
mm.
much we
True.
want to say that it's different, people that I have met up with and seen, people who are stuck in their careers are stuck in their personal lives as well. And
Mm,
those relationships which are not working out, they inhibit them, they stop their progress. And
mm,
then you start that negative spiral of getting into that pattern of being stuck. So
mm,
there is a beautiful concept called rackets and stamps in
mm,
psychology. So rackets is basically some pattern that you're stuck in which is not good, and
mhm,
stamps are bad memories. So these are the two things that stop most human beings from moving forward, because you are stuck in a
mm,
racket and you have some bad experiences at the back of your head which you keep
mm,
getting fearful about. And most of
mm,
the time, success in life or in career or in jobs or otherwise is all a function of how you are in that moment. It
mm,
is never going to be what you did 1 year back or 2 years back. So if you are driven by the past, you are never going to be in the moment. And since you're never in the moment,
mm,
you will get stuck. So this is the problem statement that we thought, okay, let's try and spread some awareness and help people both in their personal lives, which will help them in their professional careers. At the same time, career coaching is another thing that we started off last year, and we coach thousands and thousands of people now. We're
Amazing.
doing both B2B as well as B2C.
Awesome.
As part of that, we thought of, I'd written a lot of stories, so I thought, let's build a bot which will
Mm.
interact with people and which will answer questions, because a lot of times we want answers to questions.
Right.
Many times our family or friends are not able to answer. We can't ask them because it will look very
Right.
stupid to
Mm.
ask a question. Just imagine somebody who's doing well in his life asking, "What is my purpose in life?"
Yeah.
Everybody will start to laugh at that person and say, "What is this? You don't even know your purpose." And the other person who's laughing also doesn't know his purpose. That's
Correct.
the funny part, right? So everybody doesn't know it, and therefore you're fearful of ridicule. You're fearful of what will other people think of you, and all of those things prevent us from being ourselves.
Mm.
And hence we become more and more fake, which is why there is a lot of fakeness in this world, right?
Right.
So the idea of the bot is also that can you help people introspect, become self-aware at the same time. So we have both personal and professional part in the bot, and
Mm.
basically you can look at both aspects of it, personally and professionally, and then you can pick up themes. So in the personal life,
Right.
where are you stuck? Relationships, finance, money,
Mm.
whatever. We
Okay.
Similarly, on the professional side as well, if you're trying to search for a job, what's the best way to go about it? If you're
Mm.
not finding a job, what should you be doing? you
Right.
know why is it that you're not able to find? How can you upskill yourself? How can you move? You want to, let's say, change your role. How do you do that? So all of these aspects, I think we try to cover them in the bot. And now I think a lot of people have used it. I don't know the exact numbers, but thousands of people have used it, and very good feedback I've got on the bot as well. So idea is that it's a free resource for people, that
Awesome.
people can interact with, and hopefully it will help them move the needle. Essentially, if you change even, let's say, by 1% from inside,
Mm.
that amplifies your change outside, because the outside world is basically a function of how you are inside. So if you're
Right.
feeling fear, if you're feeling underconfident, then essentially that's going to show outside. So the
Right.
thought process is that, can I change a little bit of that person from inside in some way? Now,
Mm.
change in life is painful. People
True.
don't want to change. So if
Right.
somebody tells you, okay, from tomorrow your office is changed, it's quite
Right.
painful. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and he's worked with this company for 13 years. It's a tech company. He's worked with software guy, and he's put in his papers a month back. He's got a job offer, very good job offer, double the salary, and he's hunting for more job offers. So all that stuff that keeps happening in tech now. But the interesting part is, he said, what if I stay back? And he's already quit, resigned, and his in a month's time he's going to be out of that system, and he's still stuck there because he's not able to shift his mind from the
Mm.
fact that I have to move on. And I told him, I said, look, it's already happened now. How are
Right.
you? No. Then he realized that obviously he's living in a dream state, but eventually you start to think about, okay, I we all want to carry our past with us,
Yeah.
at least the good things.
Mm.
Hence change becomes painful.
Right.
Since change is painful, basically, all these psychologists will tell you that, it's going to be really tough for you if you're going to change anything, and it's going to be horrible for you. So any change is going to be really, really tough.
Right.
Some people will struggle, they'll get into depression and all of these things. Now, our thought process has been that, can we look at change as a process which can be done by just reading a story? So
Mm.
you
Mm.
read a story, and can you change?
Mm.
And can it be as simple as that? And that can only
Right.
happen when you change something inside the person. So
Mm.
if I change a little bit inside, it's going to. So a very interesting example is, at my home. So my wife, she kind of changes the entire house every 7 days. So basically, nothing is the
Wow.
same. So basically, it just changes. Now, at night you're grappling to go to the washroom or wherever. Now things have all changed. So every day you have to be alert to what's happened. Now, if the light goes
Right.
off, you don't. Now if you were living in the past, you had it. You're going to fall on your head. And one day I just fell off, and she said, you're not in the moment. You're not mindful at all. You're living in yesterday's. So I think change is something that is constant, and so how can you change that inside of you, which so that your outside keeps changing all the time, and that is
Right.
what stories. That's what storytelling is about, and that's how I think the story you tell yourself every day also has to change.
Mm.
So
Right.
if every day, if one day you're feeling low about things, you've not achieved something in your life, people go up and down in terms of emotions so much that people give up very easily. They become low, and one thing goes bad, then they start feeling bad about
Yeah.
it, and
Mm.
that's so common now. And the more, and now with this world, the way it's changing, this is going to become even more. It's just amplified. As I said, the virus has
Yeah.
just done only one thing. It's
Yeah.
amplified whatever was happening. So
Mm.
if somebody had, a lot of bad stuff inside the body, not taken care, eaten well, exercised well, that's going to amplify, and people face the consequences. And
Right.
similarly, if you inside you in your head, if you have some voices in your head all the time telling you that, am I good enough or not, or I'm fearful, what
Mm.
if I fail,
That gets amplified. Mm.
that gets amplified, and therefore stories can help you hopefully get
Yeah.
aware of what's happening inside your head.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I think that's very, very well said. And I completely resonate. I love the idea that you change everything in your house every 7 days. I think
No,
that's
I don't like
practicing.
that idea, but I have no option but to change. So I am adapting to change every day. So I'm learning now.
That's a great way to practice change, right? There's a quote I think from Mahabharata or something like that, or Bhagavad Gita or something. It says the change is the only constant in life, right? So you're practicing it every single day. That's awesome, or every single week, in that sense. That's amazing. So all the audience that
There's another way I can share. So I thought, okay, how do you trigger left and right side of the brain? So I
hmm,
started to kind of brush with the left hand. So
right,
I generally use the right hand, but I started, and initially it was a big struggle because you can't, you'll
yeah,
find your left hand is not going to move only. It's as if
hmm,
there's a rock that is holding you and you just can't move. So
right,
then I've been doing it now for 6 months, and now it's like very natural. I use my left hand, and then I just brush, and it feels better. Now that opens up neurons in the brain, and you start to use both sides of
right,
the brain. So
right,
basically, I think the key to change is changing something in your life every day.
hmm,
If you
right,
can change something in your life every day, so if you're
hmm,
sitting in the same chair, in the same place, in the same room, and maybe in the same company, you're doing the same work, if you're doing
yeah.
all of that in the same fashion, then you're not going to change, and therefore you'll become redundant one day.
Right. Perfect. Perfect. I think that's excellent. We have some questions coming in already. We'll take that in a bit. So, to the audience, I think I'm loving this conversation. If you're loving it, hit a comment there saying loving this conversation. And if you have a question, put it in a few more minutes. I'm going to open that up. So I know you've spoken to coach thousands of people, and you had the opportunity to speak to many people about their career, right? So let's tell me a little bit about let's say the top one or two things that engages the employee to the organization or binds the employee to the organization. The top one or two things that employers can do right, and the top one or two things that they do wrong that disengages the employee extremely from the organization.
I think micromanagers are the culprits in the corporate world.
Mm,
So
right.
if you have a manager who is a micromanager, then it's horrible. It's the
Mm,
worst thing in the world that you can have. So ideally, I think giving both authority and responsibility to a
right.
person,
Mm,
and when the person does well, then you need to appreciate that person, and you need to basically, if something goes wrong, you take the responsibility, and if something goes right, then you give the bouquet to that person. So the bouquet and the brickbats and the way they
mm,
are handled, it has to be pretty much the other way around.
mm,
I take the brickbats and you get the bouquets. Now this
mm,
is not very easy to do, especially in India, because we are very political as a country, right? So there's so much politics, and everybody is just wanting to get ahead of the other person.
right.
And that kind of a culture will only build when organizations invest in culture where the leader actually leads the from the front,
Mm,
and that's only when the culture will change. Now strangely, people keep saying that, look, I'm not getting enough opportunities, but it's not that they're not they're not creating them. That's one. But the other part is also, the leaders, how are they behaving, and how, what kind of, walking the talk they are doing. So I
Mm.
think for an organization, it is all about leaders.
Right.
If the leaders are not good, then it's never going to work out in terms of really building engagement. And that
Right.
walking the talk has to happen at that
Yeah.
level, and you should allow people to make mistakes. So
Mm.
if a person makes a mistake the first time, I mean, you should just tell, great, you tried something new, but this is
Right.
how you can do it better.
Right.
And then maybe the second or the third time, that's when you start to tell the person that, look, don't repeat your mistakes now.
Right.
So I would say encouragement is very important. I think human behavior, see, humans require attention, affection, and control. There are three things that
Mm.
drive human beings. So,
Mm.
we just want attention. We want, somebody to take care of us or say that you're, good and all of that. And then we also want to control things in our life. And
Mm.
that's why, because, we are not able to control our lives. So
Mm.
therefore, to compensate for that, we want to control. Now,
Mm.
if organizations just understand this and give people that control, you will have much more
Yeah.
engaged people. So if suppose I'm doing something and I know it's my baby,
Mm.
then I will do it much better.
Mm.
If I know
Yeah.
that this is me, this defines me. So see, eventually our work is our signature.
Yeah.
Everywhere, every day, whatever you do is your signature. And is
Right.
that signature you're leaving behind every single moment.
Mm.
Now, if that signature is not well written, it's the check is going to bounce.
Mm.
So that's what it is now for organizations. If they can understand this concept, and let people grow. Now there are two types of people. One will who want to grow faster. There are the second kind who will say, I want to grow, but they can't.
Mm.
They struggle. So there with the change. So
Mm.
at least you need to create an environment that for the first kind you have that, and hopefully the second kind, when they see the first kind, see, either
Mm.
they'll put in their weapons and say, look, I can't do it.
Mm.
Because when as the bar gets raised higher and higher, you start to
Mm.
realize where you really stand.
Right.
Because otherwise it's very easy to say, I'm good,
Mm.
but are you good enough when you compare yourself with someone else
Right.
who is raising the bar every single day? And that is
Mm.
where there was this gentleman many years back called Sergey Bobka. I don't know if you
Yeah.
during my childhood, he was the guy who used to, the pole vault guy, right?
Pole vault guy. Yeah. Mm.
Every time he used to break his own record, and he did that for God knows how many years. There was no competition for him because every day he was thinking of how can I break my record. He
Right.
wasn't ever thinking of how can I break someone else's record.
Mm.
And eventually he became the world's greatest pole vaulter ever. So
Mm.
I think if organizations can get a culture going which can really help people, you know, try to better their own selves,
Mm.
that is when you're building a very highly engaged organization.
Mm. All right. Awesome. I think that's great input. We have some questions here. Let's try to. I think there are two questions. One from Maria, another from Sandhya from Facebook and YouTube, respectively. Thanks for these questions. They're somewhat similar. Maria says, "What are the ingredients to making a good storytelling? What are the ingredients to good storytelling?" Sandhya is asking, "Does storytelling help e-commerce business?" You can address them how you like.
Yeah, so I think the most important part of storytelling is emotion, human emotion.
Mm.
And if you can't feel it, then you can't make somebody else feel it.
Right.
Right. So if you are saying that, look, I'm excited, but actually you're not excited from inside, then then basically, that story is not going to fly. The other person won't
Right.
feel the excitement at all.
Right.
And if you are doing something that you say, okay, this is something I'm doing, I'm very passionate about this, but actually
Mm.
you're not, then that's
Mm.
not going to come through. So there's a lot of authenticity that is required in
Yeah.
storytelling,
Right.
and the human emotion connect. It is important to understand how other people will, understand your story. So empathy is very important. That you get into somebody else's shoes and find out what's really happening.
Right.
And empathy begins at home. When somebody else is doing something at home, and are you
Mm.
able to understand? So when nobody's watching you, how do you kind of really behave, right?
Right.
There is another aspect of storytelling, that is observation. How do you
Mm.
observe people? What is happening with people? Because stories are in those little moments that happen. Stories are not in those big moments. Those big stories are never created. There is no big story actually. There's only a collection of short stories that become a big story. And which is why these days it's all bite-sized content. So, you see that is also storytelling at its smallest form that is selling now.
Right.
So you have to look at storytelling from a point of view of, okay, what is that moment that made you shift? What is that small thing that happened? You are walking by on the road, and then you see a gentleman crossing the road,
Right.
and the way he's crossing the road, let's say he's blind. That makes you think and feel, and you start to understand. And if, let's say, that time you're just standing there watching him for a few seconds, or let's say 30 seconds or so, you start to understand and feel what that person may be going through. Now that is the story. And how do you cross the road? When you cross the road,
Right.
that's another story. And these two stories are radically different. At the same time, that if you are doing, if you're feeling very happy in your life, and you see somebody very sad, then you start to also wonder that, okay, what's happening there? Why is the person so sad? Because obviously you're happy. You feel life is very good. And then, suddenly next day roles get changed. You are sad that other person's happy. Now, how does that person behave, and how did you behave? That is a story. So
Right.
story anywhere, human behavior, observing human behavior closely can help you understand stories
Right.
beautifully, right? So you kind of start to understand that, look, humans are driven by emotions. And if you can understand those emotions, then you can become a good storyteller. So
Right.
I generally keep this with me here. Let me just see if I can pull it out here. um, and just see if I can pull out. Sorry. So I
Yeah.
keep, just hold on. Let me see if it's here or not. Okay, somebody's picked it up. So I was trying to find my remote. So I keep my remote here. So to remind me that, if you know the buttons to press, then you will get the viewers, and you will get, what exactly you want people to take away from your story. So
Right.
that is storytelling in its simplest form. Can you share a story of your own life? Then can that inspire somebody to do something?
Right.
Inspire or learn, any of those. The
Right.
next question, I think, was, does storytelling help the e-commerce business? Yeah, absolutely. So when you see people buying stuff, buying is also an emotional decision.
Right.
Especially with women, I don't think they buy through logic. I
Yeah.
think they just do emotional buying, right? And
Yeah.
even when somebody is feeling low, sometimes you just want to go and shop because it makes you feel happy.
Yeah.
So all of that is all emotion driven. Now, if you can have a story around the emotion around your product, then people will buy your product. I mean, if you see all these platforms these days, which are the fundraising platforms which are there,
Yeah.
right? Which get you
Yeah.
funds. See, that's become a huge business.
Yes.
What's the business? The business model is very simple. Somebody is dying, and they will show you his or her picture, recorded message, or his or her child's picture,
Yeah.
message, and basically that's e-commerce, because you
Yeah.
go there, and then emotionally you go and you purchase. And what are you purchasing? You are donating, but actually you are purchasing feeling good,
Right.
because
Mm.
after you give a donation, you feel good.
Yeah.
You feel that I have done a good deed today. I'm such a nice
Right.
person. I feel so nice about it. So
Right.
so you feel nice about it, and then therefore that's a business, and they are selling
Yeah.
it through storytelling.
Yeah. But
So,
even even if you're able to show pictures of your customers buying something, I think that's great storytelling too in e-commerce specifically.
yeah, I mean, it depends on that is again a little transactional. I would
Yeah.
say storytelling should be away from the product.
Okay. Got it.
Should not be directly linked with the product, because the moment you have the product in your face, you're not going to buy it.
Right.
If somebody
Right.
says this is my product, and buy my product, nobody's going to buy it. Why? Because as humans we
Awesome.
don't trust.
Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. This is really interesting. We have a few more questions coming in, but we are a little short on time. We have another 5 or 6 minutes. So let's try to take one or two questions. I really like the question that Gautam has here. He says, "How do we actually connect with people in the language they understand?" I mean, the tone or the mindset in a way that how do you connect with people, especially in a remote situation? How do you do that?
I think understand the tone and pitch of the person's voice. That's the first
Mm,
thing. You know,
mm,
make the person speak and ask them about themselves. How has it been for them? What
mm,
are they engaged with right now? Try to
right.
understand them better.
Mm,
Once you understand them better, then you will know again what buttons to press.
mm,
So that initial part of the conversation is you trying to figure out,
mm,
what will help me connect to the other person better.
right.
And then once you understand that, then it becomes very easy, right?
Mm,
Which language you should speak in, what's the tone
right.
you should use, what words you should be using more,
Right.
references, which location should you be talking about. All of
Mm,
those things will matter, right?
right.
So suppose you are speaking to somebody from a different country. If you have visited that country and you share a story of that country, then you will
Mm,
connect with that person very well,
correct.
right? So
Yeah.
I think it's important to kind of contextualize that to whatever is the problem at hand or whatever. But understanding people better, I would say, is the easiest and the best
Yeah.
way to kind of connecting up with people.
Perfect. Awesome. I think we'll take one more question. I see Komal and Julia have a very similar question along the lines of storytelling. You've spoken at length about that. Let's take Sangli Sindur on Facebook has asked a question. In the current situation, people are giving advice saying just find a job and stick to it no matter what, right? So what's your advice on that?
Yeah, I think you have to first be in the race. So if it's a rat race, you have to first become a rat,
Mm,
and for that you have to be in the race. So now if you in that race and you're not liking what you're doing, if things are not going well the way you're doing it, definitely changing jobs may not be the answer to the problem.
mm,
Because if you're continuing to change jobs and things are not going right, then
right.
that means the problem is not with the job, the
Mm,
problem is with you. This means that you are looking at the wrong places, you're
mm,
attracting the wrong things in your life. See, essentially life is completely only a simple thing called attraction.
mm,
It's like you are a magnet and you're attracting things. Now you'll either attract good situations and good people, or bad situations and bad people. That's the only thing that is there. Now if you attract good situations, good people, fantastic, that's wonderful. And these will happen very rare. But if
mm,
these happen, then it's great. That means you have shifted. But if you're attracting not the right people and not the right situations in your life, that basically means that it is mirroring what is inside you.
mm,
So if you are not having a good time in your life, is basically that's how you are inside. Some part of you is like that.
mm,
So we attract people exactly similar to who we are.
mm,
It's never going to be different from that, right? So
right.
it's like that magnet, and in this case, it's opposite poles don't attract. It's you are actually attracting the same kind of person.
Right.
So,
Right.
and then we don't like our own image, because if
Mm,
we meet somebody who's just like me, because we don't like them, but actually, but we don't have the ability to identify that the problem is with me and I should not like myself.
right.
So no, but we will put a finger on them and put those. So actually, there are also lessons to be learned for all of us. If you're stuck in a bad job, a bad boss, basically that's a lesson you have to learn.
Yeah.
And it is very good that you're going through the crap, because only if you go through the crap will you improve. I think everybody should go through a lot of crap, because if you don't, you'll never figure out, what's the way out.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
at any point of time when you hit that wall, then you will not know how to break the wall.
Mm,
So you should go through tough situations and tough things in your life, because eventually when things become better, you won't lose that bit about knowing where it's gone wrong, and that will help you each time to kind of go in the right direction. Now some people will hit that early in their lives and some people will have it later in their lives. So if you have
mm,
a tough initial life and you have a better life later on, that's the most perfect situation. But yes, it will keep coming and going, because as we kind of deal with happiness and success in life, we all change.
mm.
and sometimes that change is not for the good. So therefore, somebody from the universe says, okay, you've not learned your lesson well enough. So now lesson 2.0 is coming for you. So
Hmm.
therefore, you again encounter a different challenge, a different problem. So I would say, you should be able to kind of understand where are you going wrong,
Hmm.
rather than finding out where's the problem outside.
Hmm.
Because people change jobs like clothes, and then eventually, eventually your body can't change.
Hmm.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's your body, not the clothes. Yes, these days clothes can make you feel look good.
I think that's a great take. I think that's a very very interesting and a novel approach to the look within, not look out. All right, that's a great point. I think it's been wonderful speaking to you, Sandeep. We've almost run out of time here. Thank you so much for your time, and we've come to the last part of this interview where we pick three of the most interesting questions. Would you like to do that, Sandeep, or would you like me to pick three?
Yeah, so I think let me just see. I think Sangli Sindur. I think that is a very good question.
That's a
So
great question. Yes.
yeah, and also Gautam asked this question: how do we actually connect with people in the language they understand best? That is
Absolutely,
a
that's
very
a
good
good thing.
question. And I think Maria asked this question: what are the main ingredients? So I think
Ingredients.
these three are good ones.
Awesome, awesome, fantastic picks. I would have picked the exact same. So Maria, Gautam, and Sangli Sindhu, thank you for your questions and thank you for making this conversation very interesting. Somebody from my team will reach out to you and tell you how you can redeem this 500 rupee gift voucher from thehomeoffice.in, which will help you enable your home to be better workplace. Thank you so much, Sandeep. This has been awesome fun. This has been great use of, let's say, the last 45 minutes of my time for sure. I hope the audience found the same value. Really appreciate you taking the time off.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye. Have a great evening.
Bye,
See you.
Shrikant.
Bye.